Hi, it's Brian Larsen, and I'm back with part 3 in my series for executives, entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders who are trying to understand how to get better impact out of their customer function at their companies. I did a series, I started this series, 4-parter. This is number 3. We're going to talk about value today. The first one was about clarity and having intentionality in creating your customer function. The second is about fit and getting a custom-built customer function for your company and your customer. And today will be about how to get value and how to recognize and augment the value that you're getting from your existing customer teams. Before I kick in, don't forget you can find me at larsenbridge.com and book time with me for free. No catch ever. I've talked to so many people. It's been so great, and I'd love to talk to you. So find me there. Link will be in the comments above. You can also see my other videos on clarity and fit by looking at my LinkedIn profile. Let's get right into value, though. This one is maybe the most impactful of the 4. I know we want to talk about cost. We'll talk about that next week. Today I was going through LinkedIn as I normally do in the morning, and I saw a post from a former colleague of mine that they have been impacted by a reduction in the customer success function at their company. And this one, I know this company, and I thought to myself, gosh, why? Why are we reducing the customer success function? Well, I'll tell you why. It's value. If your value is clearly understood and demonstrated routinely, you won't be impacted by a size reduction in your company. Your value is not there. They don't see a value in keeping that function, maybe. They don't see a value in keeping as many employees, maybe. It's because the ROI isn't clear to them. And this is a tough one, particularly in customer success. Customer service and support is a necessary function. Maybe you want to reduce cost. Again, we'll talk about that next week. But success and experience, they tend to be a little amorphous, and here's why. The first point is that the customer function should have business intelligence as a core competency. The goal of your customer function, the people who are talking to your customers on a daily basis, should be bringing business intelligence back to your company. Yes, it's a necessary function. You have to have it. Okay. But the business intelligence is how they differentiate themselves. Harder then to measure that and say, I'm getting value out of that. I get that. The second point is also in that vein, that the emphasis in the customer function should be about learning and not doing. So in service and support, we think of it, we measure it by doing, right? How many we're doing, how well we're doing. What the CSAT is for our responses, what our SLAs we're meeting. That's doing. They're volume metrics, they're process metrics. That's not learning. You can learn from those things, but if you don't emphasize it, you're not. In the success function, doing is how many check-ins, what's the QBR look like? How many touch points do we have with a customer in a year? Did we give them the pitch for the upsell and the cross-sell? It's not learning. It's not learning what the customer wants, what the customer values, what the customer needs, what the customer sees. What are they after? Are they after increased integrations or more APIs or fewer clicks, or what are they after? That brings back that business intelligence, but it's about learning, not doing. Not executing a game plan to upsell, cross-sell, or have touch points with the customer. Of course, all of those things are part of the customer function, particularly the customer success function. But they're not about doing. They're not about learning. They're about doing. That's the second thing that's wrong. And that leads me to the third thing in the value space. The progress that a customer team makes should be incremental. I see this so often. I talked about service and support and success just a second ago. Customer experience sort of comes into this space where we need to have this big program where we have all this engagement with the customer and we're learning from them. But it's a big program. It's an all-in. You have to buy all in. Everybody's got to be in customer experience. The whole company needs to be bought in. All the executives need to be briefed and understood what's happening in customer experience all the time so that they're thinking about the customer too. Okay, that's a good goal. But it needs to be incremental. I don't know how many programs I've seen from the voice of the customer or the customer experience program that come out with a big grand plan and fall flat because they aren't building incrementally. Yes, you need to have CSAT and NPS and measures in your NRR and ARR and MRR and the impact that your customer success team maybe has on retention, sure. All those things. But it needs to incrementally be building to something. It's not a big splash, let's change everything. And it's not, let's just keep what we're doing what we're doing and measuring the steps. It's an incremental build to develop a voice of the customer program, develop a customer experience program, and to develop an employee experience program too. But it's not done incrementally. It's done as we need this whole thing, and here's this whole blueprint for how this is going to happen, and it takes everyone's investment. You're not going to get it. You don't get it. Haven't seen it done. Just haven't seen it done. Starting from scratch, big splash, incremental, ROI at every step. The last point, and this is a segue into next week, is that cost does not equal value. I see so many places wanting to reduce cost or to maintain their outsourced customer service group or put AI in place now, right, of everybody on the customer team so that we can reduce cost. Reducing cost changes the ROI equation. It doesn't increase or decrease the value. And so what should we do? We want a company measured on outcomes. I talked about this last week with Fit. If the company is measuring outcomes, sales, retention, growth, upsell, cross-sell, then we need to be measuring those things in order to show the ROI of the value. This makes sense to me. And so sometimes I struggle with why it isn't so clear to other people. But for me, it's obvious. You measure the things that are important. And if you have a program and you build incrementally and you think about value, you measure learning and you make business intelligence a core competency of your customer team, then you have an ROI that demonstrates value. That's it. And now we'll talk about cost. Next week we'll talk about cost. But key in on this. Key in on value. We've got our value in the wrong place in the customer function. The value they provide is in the wrong place. It's not in business intelligence. It's not in learning about your customer and bringing that intelligence back to the company so that the company can learn from them too. And it's not incremental. It's big splash, fail. No splash, outsource, reduce cost, big splash, fail. It's incremental, like anything else. So next week we'll talk about cost. I know a lot of you want to talk about cost. You've reached out to me. You've asked about when cost is coming. It's coming next week. But it's so important for me. I think it's so important for the customer function at your company to understand them in terms of the value that they provide. Not the numbers or the process or the cost of that function. Okay, next week we'll talk about cost. I hope you watch this and rewatch it because the value you provide, that's the key. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Find me on larsenbridge.com. We got this.